Test. Proposition's argument is that right-wing populism is an ideology that can be distilled into 5 key characteristics. That's such a scientific dissection. Honestly, I think it's very demeaning for their side to say that a quarter of all French people and millions of people all around the world are fundamentally nativistic. They're not politically correct. They just want to lash out at their establishment. I think that what they are doing is to reduce the legitimate viewpoints of all of these people, and I think it's evidence of their liberal arrogance to say that these views should be dismissed from society. We stand against that. What's our stance? 1. We will not impose any restrictions on right-wing populist speech. 2. Obviously, we don't have to stand for threats to an individual's safety, like death threats, and we will prosecute for acts of violence accordingly. 3. We broadly believe in the value of free speech, even those that are racially tinged. There may come a point where the intent is so malicious and the expressive function of such speech is marginal. In those cases, we will judiciously prosecute for hate speech. The distinction might be porous, and when it is unclear, we will err on the side of free speech. 4. Proposition's burden is not just to defend current laws restricting free speech, but they need to defend restricting the entirety of this political ideology. Not just the white noise, but also the very legitimate viewpoints that are communicated. We are going to follow 3 arguments. 1. That right-wing populist speech is legitimate and should not be restricted. This deals with the fundamental premise in their case that right-wing populism is something we don't want in society. 2. On the risks of government abuse. And 3. My second speaker will explain how they harm political discourse. But before that, some rebuttals. They first told us that a ban was justified because a democracy is about a balance of rights. But this assumes that their policy is the only way to protect minorities. This is not true, because ethnic and racial minorities can always vote for the Democratic Party, with democratic checks and balances that are in place. But you know who doesn't have an alternative? It's the millions of disenfranchised workers within the Rust Belt who cannot get another way to express their political views on their political spectrum. We allow for representation, we allow legitimate viewpoints to be expressed. They then say, but these are just distractions, it's just white noise. Right-wing populism isn't solution-oriented. I think this is honestly very demeaning to see that half the people in America don't want to vote for actual policies. There are very legitimate policies that can be carried out. For instance, immigration quotas, trade protectionism, etc. It's not just all white noise. They then talk to us about how we may instill fear in minorities. Now, a person's response to such speech could be fear, but it could also be one of moral indignation. And there are many reasons to suggest why moral indignation is the more likely response rather than feeling threatened. The reason for this is because the cost of expressing free speech in the status quo is very low. A lot of this speech happens within social media. So these are people who agree with you, etc. There's a reason why when many African Americans listen to Trump's tweet, the way they respond is not of fear or threat, but they respond by retweeting anti-Trump messages and having them shared and affirmed by people who share their beliefs. Before I move on, yes?
Do you support restrictions on hate speech slander on sites of violence when spread by right-wing pockets? And if not, why?
I just told you my policy as to why at a certain point, when if it's so egregious and the intent is so malicious and there's like very marginal expressive function, we think we will censor those, but we think for the vast majority of right-wing populist speech, it is not like that. That's a majority burden we have to prove. Their second argument was about discourse. The fundamental premise here is that right-wing populism is harmful. They never provided us an alternative to the problems we see today. My first substantive will now show you why right-wing populist speech is legitimate and should not be restricted. The premise of my first argument: why is free speech valuable? Our identities don't exist in a vacuum. They only gain meaning through expression and interaction with other beings. Hence, free speech is a fundamental right that we should not discard for mere convenience. Why is right-wing populist speech particularly vital? Since the 1990s, there has been a radical convergence towards neoliberal centrism in politics. Until recently, most major parties were pro-free trade and globalization. Democrats under Clinton converted Republicans on free trade, while Labour in the UK co-opted many aspects of patriotism under Blair. Why is this consensus harmful? 1. Because a democracy without choice is not a democracy. When there is no party that comes close to representing your interests, then democracy has failed you. What right-wing populism does is to embrace and endorse viewpoints which are perfectly defensible, like the government having a foremost duty to its citizens. So when they tell us it's white noise, we think these are legitimate standpoints. 2. Because it disenfranchises the millions of workers in the Rust Belt whose livelihoods have been imperiled by free trade and immigration. They are neglected by a Democratic Party preoccupied with identity politics and a Republican Party that stands for an unbridled free market. These are problems that exist now, they have no solution. Those left behind by free trade are left voiceless. What right-wing populist speech does is to signal that 1, these communities have been disenfranchised, and 2, that they're electorally determinate. Its upsurgence demands the attention of the political establishment. it has catalyzed the rise in class-based left-leaning politics as Sanders rises in the Democratic Party and Corbyn brings Labour back to its socialist roots. So even if we can agree that right-wing populism itself is a bad idea, it does result in a recalibration of the political spectrum that we think is good for representation. Now, we acknowledge that right-wing populist speech may have unsavory elements, and this deals with their premise that these unsavory speech is bad. But before we move on, yes.
Right-wing populists like Trump are known for fake news and lies. Why does that provide a valuable choice for voters if their votes are based on misinformation?
One, I think the fact that they believe in this fake news, or if they know it's fake news but still vote for it, is still a legitimate form of political expression if they do not care this much about these facts. My second argument will show you how you worsen everything you're talking about. We think that even unsavory elements of speech has immense expressive value for two reasons. One, because it's unreasonable and elitist to demand that the disenfranchised speak only in the language and vernacular which elites find palatable, what they call their policy political correctness. Anti-immigration sentiment, expressed without extensive qualifications and hedging that we are familiar with in our political discourse, does often sound quite racist, but not that everyone has access to the sanitized language of Team England, particularly for the worse off. Two, because problematic language is a unique signal effect. Saying we need to overhaul immigration quotas doesn't convey the same intensity as saying immigrants should get out of our nation. The left represents a fundamental disillusionment towards globalization and the belief that integration is hopeless. Hence, right-wing populism is an indispensable part of speech and democracy that should be preserved. My second argument is on the risks of government abuse. My thesis is that propositions policy is a vast expansion of the state's regulatory power over free speech. Given all the ambiguities involved, this is a huge target for abuse. Just listen to the 5 criteria they presented. What is nativism? What is an attack on the establishment? If I critique the New York Times, is that considered under their policy? This means that all their anti-truths and hate speech are incredibly vague. And this is particularly true because fake news, as you want to talk about in the POI, heavily involves judgments of character, like claims that Bill Clinton is a womanizer, or causal judgments that the police shot a black man because of racism. The truth of these claims cannot be objectively proven. Furthermore, whether something passes the threshold of hate speech is highly dependent on context and intent. They can't just throw this away with a mechanism in their policy. For instance, Jeremy Corbyn has said that immigrants undermine labour standards, but presumably he wouldn't be prosecuted under proposition. Therefore, the content of such speech is subjective. But beyond that, the prosecution is subjective as well. In most of criminal law, governments don't prosecute every case because there are too many of them. This means they pick and choose. This is itself political because the legal process only begins once a case is brought to court. However, prosecutors have very strong personal incentives to act in the interest of their partisan masters because they want to gain a promotion and curry favour. This means that often the kinds of speech that are curtailed are those that hurt the government's partisan interests. This means that they allow governments to artificially entrench power because the prosecution will only choose to attack those views and those forms of hate speech that disfavors them. It also means that on their side, journalists are either forced to self-censor because they don't want to be dragged to court, or they're forced to review confidential speech and confidential sources when they have to defend themselves in court. Therefore, we believe that silence is oppression. We oppose.